I can still remember my trial to join the ground staff. I was in bits. I sent down 6 of the worst balls that anyone could ever have pitched. I managed to compose myself though, and evidently to the satisfaction of Mr Hearn, head groundsman, and the cricket coach Alfred Atfield, who'd been on the staff himself some years previously, I was selected along with 5 other lads. There were 20 or so that didn't make it. That was back when I was 15. I'd written a letter to Mr Lacey and that's how I came to be invited to Lords. My old man had always encouraged me and my brothers to practice our cricket the best we could, and there was plenty of opportunity to do so at school down in Portman Square. Home was a different story though, and with few open spaces in Marylebone, we took to the streets. I've always said that if you can clean bowl a man 9 times out of 10 against a lamppost, you'll not miss a full-size wicket when you get the chance. Anyway, I gave up work in my dad's grocer's to pursue a life in cricket, and I've never looked back. That's not strictly true. An incident with the Indian Prince Ranjit Singh sticks in the mind. Bowling to the Maharaja, his craftsmanship made me feel so clumsy I almost gave up cricket on the spot. Imagine my surprise some years later. I was coaching in India and he approached me by name as if we'd been the oldest of friends. He was a truly great cricketer, but if I may presume to say so, an even greater gentleman. One of my earliest memories at Lords was of a tiny MCC cap clinging precariously to a massive head, the face of which from the boundary edge seemed to consist entirely of beard. Dr W.G. Grace, God rest his soul, was already 50 and playing against the Australians, but I never once saw him play right back to ball, and modern pad players we know it just didn't exist. I bowled to many great players in my early years at Lords, but it wasn't just celebrated cricketers. Ordinary members would pitch up and expect us lads to bowl them till they'd had their fill, sometimes till it was too dark to see. Still, what an opportunity for a youngster like me. I studied their techniques the best I could, and within a few years I'd become a decent enough batsman in my own right. That's not to say we didn't have anything else to occupy our time except hanging around the nets all day. We was expected to get on with whatever odd job needed doing, and hard graft it was too. The ground superintendent, Mr Gaby, used to tell us, if you learn to use a broom properly, you learn to use a bat properly. I used to enjoy hawking the scorecards though. Thanks to having worked in Dad's shop, I built up a decent enough patter and I always beat the other lads when it came to sales. I think it evened out in the end though, because being one of the youngest, I always got lumbered with the lousy tippers in the nets. Among those slightly senior to me back in 1906 were 2 Jacks, Jack Endren, Patsy's younger brother, and young Jack Hearn, who carried on the Hearn tradition here at Lords. We 3 became inseparable companions. Young Jack went on to play for England, but sadly we lost Jack Endren in the Somme in 1916. There were 16 of us in total, and we each had a number according to seniority. Mine was 13. Work began at 8 when number 1, the head ground boy, would detail us with the day's jobs. Some might be sent to do the roads, to sweep from the nursery clock round to the pavilion right under the mound. Others would be sent to clean the stands, while the rest were sent to prepare the practice nets. That took us up till tea break at about 10:30, and then it was on to the big roller. Pitching wickets, marking creases, picking up grass, weeding on wet days, and a really dirty job that number 13 seemed to require with remarkable regularity, cleaning underneath the big score box. At 11 on match days we had to be washed, dressed in our uniforms of grey suits. Then it was off to selling scorecards, fielding in the practice nets or up the score boxes. Some people seem to think that a ground boy's life was one glorious round of cricket, but that simply wasn't the case. Except for fielding, for which I had plenty of practice, my development in those early years was slow. We had no regular matches, no real coaching, and the only time we was allowed a net was during the lunch interval, and even then it had to be in a remote corner. I remember one year, Yorkshire were playing at Lords, and George Hurst come and stood behind our net for a few minutes. He didn't say much, and he didn't single anyone out, but a good shot was always rewarded with a "good shot, lad," and a poor one received an equally quiet "you didn't know how to do that," followed by a quick demonstration of what should have been done. On such days it was a joy to be alive, let me tell you. But these were the days of amateur cricket, and very few of us professionals got a look in when it came to selecting the Middlesex first 11. Just before us, JT Hearn, Albert Trott and JT Rawlin had all been the regular professionals. Tireless Hearn was the senior Middlesex pro in my day, and the other two regulars were Joe Morrell, the wicket-keeper, and the great all-rounder Frank Tarrant. Patsy Endren, older than young Jack and me, was out of the team for many years before he got a regular place. I simply wasn't in the same class. I had to wait 5 years for my first start for Middlesex, and another 8, last year in fact, before I even got a regular place in the team. I don't know what happened to the other ground boys. I was lucky. The MCC secretary, Mr Lacey, went out of his way to understand the Lord's professionals and to help them, and he took a personal interest in my development. He had the habit of looking you right in the face, which is much less common than you might think. He was a kind man, a fair man, but he could do his share of the scolding when necessary. I remember one year, me and the other lads went out for lunch. We were walking down the street and I spied this shiny gold sovereign on the pavement. I had a look around, and with no one watching and no one claiming it, I pocketed it for myself. I guess word must have got around though, because no sooner had we returned, bashing down the door was this 6-foot cricketer, red-faced and grimacing like hell, threatening to knock my block off if I didn't return his sovereign. Might have been on his side, but right seemed to be lacking, so off we marched to Mr Lacey's office. Once there, he put aside the weighty duties of the day and listened to us both attentively, as he always did. He explained to me the laws about stealing by finding and the penalties attached, and made me feel much smaller than I already was. He turned to the big fella and he said, "As for you, I've never seen such bullying conduct of a young boy," and asked me to wait outside. 15 minutes passed, and finally out come that same 6-foot cricketer, white as his cricket boots, trembling and as nice to me as you can possibly imagine. I'm glad I never did anything to excite Mr Lacey's wrath. That experience of it second hand was plenty enough for me. Lord's has come to resemble what I expect of the great public schools, where everyone knows his place and may not exceed it nor lower the dignity of his position. The head ground boy gave us our orders, and where he got them from or how he was ticked off if anything went wrong, we neither knew nor inquired. I was fortunate enough to attract the attention of Mr Lacey, but that was very much a personal matter. If some great one like Lord Harris had come stalking into our working lives, I wouldn't have known what to say to him. All I could have hoped for was the ground to swallow me up whole underneath me. The Lords I knew as a ground boy was that of the amateur batsmen. The bowling staff, though they were batsmen among us, were principally engaged to bowl, either in the practice nets or in MCC matches. I was taken on as a bowler, so was Patsy Endren, and even George Brown of Hampshire, who we all know now as a wicket-keeper. Many old professionals were tired, rough, hard-drinking men, brought up on a life of manual labour, making their living in cricket through brawn rather than brain. In each county team were perhaps 1 or 2 respected professionals, such as Tireless Hearn, who were occasionally consulted by their amateur captains, but the rank and file was simply told what to do and what not to do. They weren't asked to think, and I honestly think I can say if you asked them to do so, they'd be hard put to comply. But for now, you're going to have to excuse me. We're leading the championship, and tomorrow's match against Surrey is Mr Warner's final game as our captain. He's got his heart set on the championship, and I think I can speak for myself and the rest of the Middlesex players when I say we'll do anything short of murder to see that he gets it.